Hello guys and welcome back. So let's move on to creating the fingers. Okay, you could start with like some primitive shape and just lay out this, lay them out. I'm gonna go for like a stupid approach, but kind of like good for exercise. I'm just gonna drag it out this way. Okay, drag it out like this for the index finger. Okay, now one thing to always get it right is this angle here you're seeing, right? And the proportion, like how long does this compare to the rest of the hand? Okay, it's about the same size as that. In that matter, I think maybe I'm making this palm a little bit too big. Okay, I'm trying to arrange things. All right, and then when that is done, of course, go to different angles and take a look at that. You can see, well, this is raising up, right? I can dynamesh this entire thing first. Go to my masking and use the mask lasso while I'm at it, masking it, blur the mask, right? And then just basically rotating this up. All right. And then I can use BIN for the inflate brush just to get the tip of the hand a bit bigger. Okay. And then trying to figure out if there's any pulsing happening to this index finger. Okay. All right. Feels like it can be a bit thinner here. I think this is the primary bending. At the first segment, we could try to do something like that. Okay. All right, fingernail. Fingernail is, annoying too because there are 5 fingernails. Yeah, anything that is repetitive is something I don't like to do, but just something you have to do, of course. So I'm just trying to roughly block out the same way that what's the same way what the scan looks like. Okay. All right. Okay, and then we could just add that little. You can see it's like kind of like having a little bit bending here. Human finger are not straight, right? They're not straight, so hardly anything is. So you kind of want it to be able to have that nature in it. Otherwise, it feels like wrong somehow. And then you just add maybe a little bit bumping here because that's what I see in there too, right? Using standard brush, kind of like extend all the way to the top. Right, but it's not that important yet. I just need to have something to represent it more or less. I have to retopologize it. To zero measure it at least to get something decent before I dealing with a more complicated detail. Okay, so that's one finger. Okay, we have of course some of the detail in there. Maybe I can just draw out real quick. I personally feel like move brush is more convenient, but I'm trying to see what's going on here. If I can mask it like this, it's kind of like a muscle that looks like this shape. Okay, or whatever that is, a bodge or whatever. It could be a combination of all sorts of stuff. So I'm trying to make that. That's not important yet. Something I can lay out just to make it looks more like the finger I'm trying to build. Just because it looks weird without anything on it. But yeah, that's one finger. Okay. And then go beyond that, we can just do the same thing for the next finger. Okay, just move to drag things out. Okay, this one, make it center in there. is the ring finger. I can dynamesh this thing again, smooth it out, use the inflate to inflate the tip a little bit more. Okay, now you want to then take a look at your placement of the fingers, because you need 4 fingers in here, right? You want to make sure that you have enough space, or you don't have too much space left, right? Compare your sizes all the time. Like what I said in the beginning, the proportion is more important than individual shapes. You want to get them right in the beginning. Okay, and then afterwards I can then use move to basically refine the shapes. I think it can be thicker, so I'm trying to inflate it. Okay, I think it's kind of like bending in here, and then it's kind of like, yeah, directionality is important. So I think this finger could be bending this way. I feel more. It's actually kind of have some tilt up, kind of like momentum in there. Right, so I'm trying to mimic that, and here on the bottom, just pull it down, just like what's going on in there. It's kind of like it's having this major turning, and then the rest will be more like this kind of like bending shape. Okay, I'm trying to mimic that. Find the primary bending area, tweak the thickness, right? Okay, and then we can also go to the front view and just take a little bit more dynamesh it, of course. And then we can then add something over here. I think that's kind of like an interesting connection to the middle of the hand, right? And then there's some really noticeable joint structure here in the middle. I'm trying to make this piece wider, because that's kind of like the widest area of this finger. Okay, we can also make these a little bit more refined. Okay, I'm trying to use move to shift it a little bit, because I see like that one is not quite close to where it is. Because you can take a look at this guy here, you can see, well, this is more closer to the edge than what I'm having in here, so there must be something wrong. So let me smooth that out. Maybe this can be thinner, and maybe the pinky finger should be rotating this way more, right? So you discover like problems down the way when you're sculpting, right? It's not a way of like, I got it right the first time, I don't deal with it anymore in any cases, right? So I'm always like, I got something, and then I realize, okay, there's something else that is wrong after that, and I fix it. Okay, all right, so kind of like to give it the bone structure here now. Okay, so like what I marked earlier, this is 2 high ground, and you have a low ground in the middle. You have 2 low ground on the side. They're not symmetrical, right? And they're blending to the surroundings. We give it some smoothing down the way. All right, and then here we have a little high ground. The finger can be wider here, and then it's more square-like on the tip, and you have the finger now. And then from the side view, we could make it shrinked more on the tip. All right, that's another finger. Okay, well now when I look at it from this angle, I think this is pretty straight actually. I don't see a lot of bending at all. So I think, yeah, it's just the way this hand is posed. Okay, but I think I'm making it bending up too much, so I'm gonna go back here. Oops. Grab these, control click to invert, smooth that. and move the pivot to there and just rotate it back down. Okay, so yeah, so keep on going from there. We're gonna do the index finger the same way. Okay, but you can see, well, this getting kind of like a little bit repetitive, right? So you could just, for the practice purposes, I'm gonna do it from scratch, but you could actually copy from here by doing like a masking polygroup, and then you group that and drag it over kind of thing and refuse them together. Right, but I'm just gonna do it from scratch one more time. Okay, so another finger here, right? And then we could move it. I think it's kind of like bending the same way as the other one. All right. And then we Dynamesh it, and then use inflate to inflate this thing on the tip. Okay. Maybe a bit more here in the middle also. Okay, we can smooth it to shrink it back in. Alright, let's talk about the bending here. I think the bending could be a bit bigger. Okay, and then take a look at the thickness. I think the thickness does change in the middle. It's bigger on the base. And then getting thinner on the tip. Right. And of course for the back, I think we're destroying some of the things we built. So it's just a matter of rebuilding them carefully. Yeah, there's some gap between the fingers, which is what I'm trying to drag around to open that gap more. Okay, so from the look of it, I think they're bending almost the same amount. Maybe I can make the index, sorry, this is not the index, the middle finger, to bend a bit more. So I'm gonna mask that, blur that, Alt click to reposition the pivot. Okay, I just use this white one a whole lot. All I have to do is rotate to that angle I want to rotate, just rotate that way. Okay, all right. The tip of the finger, kind of wanted to give it some bending to make it bigger there and smaller here. And there's some flattened shape over here. You can see this contour. If I can just go do this, you can see, well, this part is getting too collapsed compared to that part. It's one thing kind of wanted to avoid, so we can use standard brush to give it some more volume there. Right, to bring that concave area back up. Okay, now again, go back to the front view, then we can keep on going from there and just try to use move or whatever brush that you see need to basically refine the shape. Okay, I'm not really like doing the fingernail like at all. It's really annoying. Okay, cool. And maybe some smoothing, Dynamesh. We can then just add the, you know, the joint in there, the bone. Okay, and then here we have like a bigger diamond shape thing, so I'm trying to sculpt it out, and then have its line goes up. Right, try to see if there's any interesting variations. It feels like this is having this really interesting bend. I think this last joint here, if I blur that, it's kind of like bending upwards. Yeah, a bit more. Alright, so that's one more finger. Okay. It feels like this part is concaving in somehow, which is what I don't like to have. So I'm trying to fix that. Whenever you see like there's some fundamental problem of your shape, you address that first. Okay, this is really going to be annoying later on, especially when you have blocked in a lot of more details. Then it becomes really annoying having to fix those things down the way. Right, now the last finger will be the same thing. Just drag it out now. Right, and this one is going downwards more, so I'm trying to do that. No, not you. This one, right? It's going downwards this way. Smooth that out, drag it over. Okay. All right, and let's see, Dynamesh it, smooth it out, and then inflate back up. All right. So one more finger, and then we can try to define its positioning better. The index finger looks like it's a little smaller than the middle finger, right? From the look of it, and it's bending downward more. So I'm gonna go try to mask that. Control click, blur the mask, Alt click in there, and just bend it downwards this way. No, it's not that much. It's kind of like this, yeah. And then standard brush to filling in some more volume. I think it's losing its volume because of the smoothing and dragging. I just make it more cylindrical shape before we do any big details. All right, and then basically the connection here is having a big opening, trying to mimic that. Clip it up. It's really good. It's destructive on its nature, but it's also constructive because you're making new shapes. The base standard brush is more like adding on top, while the clip build up overrides what's going on underneath. Yeah, that's how I see those brushes differently. Right. Cool. So we have something bulging out over here. Okay, and let's see the back. I think we're getting decent connections. Trying to tweak this contour, this line there. You can see it's such a bigger separation in there, but we don't have it in here on this one. So I'm trying to see what the problem is. Okay, I think there is some proportion issue I'm gonna address here real quick. I'm trying to scale these guys inwards and drag them back out. Okay. Alright, feels like these things are, you can take a look at that position. It's kind of like, if you drag that line all the way to here, that's where it is. So I'm trying to squeeze these guys backwards in. Okay, I think the pinky finger can be just a bit smaller from this angle. Same goes for this guy. This guy could be bigger. Right. Can smooth that out and redo it, no problem. Right, and then we have this finger in here. And we have the big joint budge in there, and it has a line goes in. Okay, I think this one is actually a little bit too strong now compared to what's going on in there, so I'm trying to reposition it. Alright, now we're getting close to finish all the fingers. Just one more index, one more thumb actually. So it's going to be the same process again. So if you feel like, okay, I know what you're doing, right? Don't want to see through this entire video, then feel free to jump to the next one where we actually start to do the next step, right? But here you can see, well, we can gradually already build up quite a few shapes already in the process of making the fingers, right? And it's basically the repeating step of doing this, which is kind of like a really boring thing to do in my opinion. Like that's why I don't like doing hands, because it is repetitive, especially when you're doing the fingers. Yeah, you could do copying, but you know, for the detailing and whatever, you just have to do it twice, 3, 4 times, right? So yeah. All right, so I'm gonna move on to the sum here, and by the look of it, I think I could just extend this a little bit more, and then just drag it out in here. Okay. All right, just have some basic shapes laid out. Okay. Sometimes it helps for you to even see like the negative shape like this. Let's just compare that. That would be really helping, because the negative shape is flat. A flat shape is lesser destructive, if you know what I mean, right? Or what's happening internally is having too much of a varying things happening, so it kind of like distracts your eyes from seeing the truth. Well, the negative shape is flat, so you can see the truth without a whole lot of distraction, basically. All right. So yeah, have something here, and Dynamesh, and just some smoothing, some basic connections. I think there's something happening in here. Yeah, not that important yet. I think my goal here is still trying to figure out the correct proportion and placement of the thumb finger. Okay, you can take a look at it. It's too flattened. It's actually pretty flattened in that reference too. So anyway, I'm gonna inflate it, or using the standard brush to give it some more volume. Okay. And then looking at it from this angle, you can see this is much lower. You can see a gap in there. So I'm gonna try to get this thing moved downwards. We rotate this way more, and we drag this downwards also. If you back in a little bit more. Alright, so yeah, we're basically blocking out all the fingers. Now if you get the basic shape right, it should already feels pretty much like the hand. I just need a few more attentions on details and adding basically details right down the way. So as you can see, well, this process is not that hard. It's just repetitive if you know what you're doing. I think that's kind of like my takeaway of, you know, doing things like this. As long as you know what you're seeing, you understand the shape you're building, it's easier to do it. And you shouldn't feel like difficulties of, you know, why this is not looking right. That's out of the question. If you're like having trouble, say, okay, I don't get it, it's not looking right, but I don't know why, then you go back to the drawing board, try to analyze the hand more, and see if there's something like you really overlook, that you don't really understand on the fundamental level, right? From the artistic aspect, right? Do you understand it? Okay. Oftentimes it's not your skill of the software. Maybe it could be because you need more practice to get more fluent of sculpting, but I think most of the times, if not all, it's because you do not understand the shape, right? And that's going to be fundamentally problematic no matter how much you try to tweak. If you tweak it in the wrong way, then it's going to be wrong nonetheless. All right, cool. So yeah, that's the sum. So we have all those things laid out. In the next video, we're gonna try to keep on going with this and try to, you know, refine it, add detail, and do whatever that's needed to make it better. Okay, cool. See you next time.